Welcome. My name is Robin Elander, Executive Director for Downtown Santa Barbara. We are so excited to be here for another Downtown Spotlight interview series that is a collaboration between the Santa Barbara Independent and Downtown Santa Barbara, where we interview different business owners on all kinds of topics each Thursday at 3. So my co-host for today's show and many of these shows has been Matt Kettmann, who is the senior editor at the Santa Barbara Independent. He's worked there since '99. He's covered quite a wide range of topics and focuses mostly on food and drink. He's got a new book out recently and so much that Matt does for the community. Thank you so much for hosting this show. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Robin. Yeah, I'm Matt Kettmann. As Robin says, I've been at the Independent for 20 plus years now. I'm also a contributing editor at Wine Enthusiast and review a ton of wines every month. And I get to spend a lot of my time covering the restaurants, wineries, breweries, distilleries, et cetera, of Santa Barbara. So makes me uniquely qualified, I guess, to host today's panel, in which we're going to talk about the status of sipping in downtown Santa Barbara. Joining us today, we have Katie Grassini from Grassini Family Vineyards, a great vineyard based up in San Ynez Valley, but with a tasting room right in downtown. We have John Nasser from Night Lizard Brewing Co. right on State Street, and Aron Ashland from the Cruisery right on State Street as well, and has had a long background in working State Street. So we'll get into that. So I think what we're going to do first is do some kind of introductory comments and have you guys kind of explain your backgrounds and how you got into this. And then after that, we can kind of move into talking about how things have changed so dramatically in the last year or so, explaining why we're on Zoom these days rather than hanging out in person, and talk about how you guys have shifted to all that. So Katie, I mean, let's start with you. Your family's been growing and making wine in the Valley for quite a long time. You guys have a long family history of visiting the area and now living in the area. So tell us about the beginnings of Grassini Family Vineyard and how you eventually decided to open a tasting room downtown in El Paseo and how that's evolved over the years.
Sure. Yeah. Well, our family, like you said, we've had a long history here in Santa Barbara. We used to come up here when we were kids. And my family I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and my parents were looking for a little space. They kind of realized eventually they were going to have a lot of teenagers running around and needed some room for us to roam. And so they started looking in the San Ynez Valley and found this beautiful 100-acre plot out there, out in the Happy Canyon area. And so they settled on this plot of land out there, and eventually that was back in the mid 80s, and eventually kind of realized that it was a great place for growing wine grapes, and as we've seen over the past decades, it's really grown out there and become just this really thriving, wonderful industry, and we're really thrilled to be a part of it. It took a little while for us to make the investment and to really go for it, and starting in around the late or early 2000s, we started putting in all of the infrastructure that you need to do, and started planting the grapevines. Eventually had our first vintage we had a little bit of grapes in 2006, which was the first little bit that you get for family. We didn't really want to sell that yet, so we did that for my grandmother's 85th birthday, just enough for some family members. And then the first vintage that we had for the public was 07.
How'd she like that, the birthday wine?
Oh, she loved it. She loved it. I mean, we did a special label for her. She felt, made her feel very special. And then we sent the bottles to everybody got to take some home with them. And it's neat because now when we go to everybody's family's houses, you still see the bottle. Everybody kept their bottles, I don't know how good the wine is anymore. Nobody's storing it correctly, it's out, it's pride of place, and it's probably cooked at this point, but it's the label that matters now. But so that was the first vintage, and then 07 was the first one we had for folks to try. And it's been a fun journey ever since then. And
your family was integral in making, not to get too deep into wine specifics, but Santa Barbara County at that time was getting really well known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, which is grown on the western edge of the San Ynez Valley in the Santa Rita Hills, which had become its own appellation. And your family was really integral in getting Happy Canyon of Santa Barbara named as an appellation, as a place to grow Sauvignon Blanc and Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and other Bordeaux grapes, which was a big deal for Santa Barbara County and for your specific region too, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important for folks. The movie Sideways came out, and this whole area blew up. Everybody knew about Pinot Noir, and they knew about that whole area out there, but they were kind of surprised to hear that you could grow beautiful Cabernet and these warm weather grapes out here. And so it was really important to us to get this AVA name so that the consumer could know that there was an area where you could grow these grapes, and that we got these really warm, long, sunny, hot days that would ripen these grapes just fine. And then at night we get these huge diurnal shifts, so it'll be 100 degrees during the day, and then the sun goes down and it's 40, 50 degrees at night, which is perfect for the acidity in those grapes. So we get these really nice balanced Cabernet and Bordeaux varietals. So
and then the other thing with Happy Canyon is that they're fairly large estates, due to some kind of neighborhood opposition, none of the wineries out there really are allowed tasting rooms on their estate. So you're making all this great wine by 2007 or so, and you don't have anywhere to pour it. So what happens next?
Yeah, so we were kind of this little hidden gem back there. Everything was real private, real quiet, and so we started looking around, and we wanted people to try the wine. You don't just make it to hold on to it. You wanted people to actually discover it. So we started looking at where we could open a tasting room, and we were really lucky. Someone turned us on to this space that had just opened up in the beautiful El Paseo building in the Presidio neighborhood, in the historic heart of downtown Santa Barbara, right next to Aubin Clement, at the time, Marjoram Wine Tasting Room and the Wine Cask. So it's like these three historic, pivotal places in Santa Barbara for the food and wine industry. It was just perfect. And here we are, this kind of brand new little brand. So to have these, stalwarts right there, it was really great to be next to them. So we opened that up in 2011, so 10 years ago now. And it was amazing. I had never operated a tasting room before, so we designed it. It was beautiful, but it was tiny. It was such a little space. And of course we designed this enormous tasting room bar that was a totally bad use of space, but absolutely gorgeous, big wood, huge leather chairs that were the most comfortable things ever. But as soon as two people walked in, the place felt crowded, But
what was that room before you guys, historically? Because it is a very small. Was it like an office or something?
Yeah. So right before us, I think it had been an antique jewelry place for a while. So it was a really cool space because it actually had a downstairs as well that was for originally, I think it was the wine casks. It was their wine cellar downstairs. And then at a certain point, it was also the wine cask kitchen or part of their dining room. And then I think it also had been part of ABC had shared a wall with it. So when you go downstairs in the El Paseo, there's some wild little tunnels and things down there. You have to hunch over, and
wow,
it's
cool.
Really neat.
So you obviously outgrew it fairly quickly, or?
Yeah, we outgrew it really, really quickly. But it was such a great space because just the foot traffic there of foodies was awesome. So we outgrew it and we started looking around, but we wanted to stay in the Presidio neighborhood, and we really wanted to stay in that beautiful El Paseo. And so we were really lucky in late 2017, space opened up towards the front of the El Paseo, right near State Street. If you're looking at where Bryant and Sons and 33 Jewels is, and it was a what were they, a PR firm or something that was closing up shop and moving out, and it was an awesome space. So we jumped on that, and we were so lucky to get it. I think we tripled or quadrupled the square footage, and it even had a little exterior outdoor patio that we were able to get. It has a little fireplace in it, a little VIP room. So we jumped on that, and we were able to open that in December of 2017. It was actually the day we opened up, the day before the Thomas fire.
Oh, geez.
So
It was, yeah, we were very excited to finally have an outdoor patio, and then the ash started coming, and we
Wow.
before we opened that. So it was, but
and it's been going well. I mean, disasters aside, it's been going. Things are going pretty well there prior to the pandemic, right?
yeah, it was great. I mean, it was nice to have just space that people could sit, more room. We were able to do more events. We were able to host a lot more fundraisers in there, just being able to get more people in, have more community impact. It's really been lovely. And I think because the prior tenants in there had, they weren't really the kind of business that welcomed people in. It was more, they were on the phone and kind of had the windows and the doors shut. So it wasn't really inviting people to come in off of State Street and enter the El Paseo and get off State Street and come into the Presidio neighborhood. So now we've got the outdoor patios set up. We've got the music going. You see, it's inviting. It kind of, people as they're walking by the El Paseo, they see people down there, and it kind of invites them to come in and wander around a little bit more. So I think
It really is a beautiful space in there.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
I always felt I used to live right around the corner down there many years ago, and I would walk through El Paseo all the time, and I always felt it was a shame that there were so many just offices in there versus visitors serving things. And now that's really kind of changed with a lot of the tasting rooms in there.
Yeah.
Which is nice to see. So, and you definitely do make it a much more inviting. Some of the best things about cities around the world are these little side alleys, right, where the cool stuff hides out, and you're making it much more inviting for people there, which I think is great. So, so we'll come back to you to talk about what you've done to utilize that outdoor space, I'm sure. But let's go to John Nasser from Night Lizard. You opened in August 2018 after quite a long opening process. You kind of were slightly the poster child for a little while of like how long it took to open things in Santa Barbara, but you got open, and I think things were going pretty well until the pandemic. So tell us about how you got into the beer business. I think this is probably not your first career, but I think it's a family affair for you guys. And tell us about the brewery, how you started, and what you guys have been up to.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, I mean, the getting the brewery open was a long process, and besides Aron's Cruisery, down the block, we're the only other place on State Street that's actually brewing beer. So the planning department in the city was a little nervous. Aron's business was opened a long time before we were, but they were a little nervous about the fact that we were actually going to be manufacturing barrels of beer there. So it did take a long time. But like Katie's business, ours is a family business. I'm the owner. My wife and I moved to California back in 2002 for business. I was still in the corporate world. And we first, just to detour for just a second and talk about Santa Barbara, we came up here our first time after living in Westlake Village for 3 months. We came up here for the day, and it was wintertime, but it was again a beautiful day. It was wintertime. It was about 65 degrees. The sun was setting on the bay, and then we're coming around the corner of Montecito, and I looked up and saw the Riviera, and then my wife's like, "What just happened to you?" And it was at that time that I really fell in love with Santa Barbara. I don't know if I was here in a previous life or what, but we're from northern Indiana. This is not our our normal place, but we're so happy to be here. It's such a beautiful place to live, let alone be able to run a business. So anyway, we homebrewed, my son and I, for about 10 years, along with my father-in-law. He was a big beer drinker. So my son is a scientist by trade. He's chemist and biologist. And I don't know if you saw City Slickers, but when Curly takes Billy Crystal out to find the calf, and he says the meaning of life is just that one thing, you got to find what that one thing is. For my son, that one thing is brewing beer. He's just got the left and right side of the brain to do it. So after I retired in 2016 from corporate, I was in biotech for 40 years. We decided, what the heck, let's do this. So we had a family meeting, sat down. My son was in charge of the back of house brewing. My daughter was in charge of the tasting room. And we started the process. We found the space at 607 State Street. Beautiful. I needed 17-foot ceilings, and my ceilings were 17 foot 1 inch. So it was meant to be. And we started the process of building the place out. We had two goals in mind with the brewery, really, in the business model. One was, everybody knows this, but if you're making wine or you're making whatever you're making, you got to have a good product. So the first thing was, when people's butts were going out the door after having a beer, that the caption off their head was, "I'm going to come back." There were a couple of beers I didn't get to try. The other thing that kind of niches us different than other places is the fact that we have a real heavy environmental focus. So the other goal that we have when you leave our brewery is that you learn something about the Central Coast environment. All of our beers are named after some form of endangered or threatened species. We give money back to target environmental groups when we have a good quarter. Just trying to let folks know that the Central Coast here, the environment here is important. And if you leave liking the beer and learning something, it's a win-win. And that's what we're looking for. We opened back in August of 2018, and like Katie, we were on the back end of the fire and the mudslide, but right before the pandemic. And since then, we've adjusted a little bit. Our business model when we opened was because 70% of my revenue every day comes from out of town folks, was that the majority of our revenue was going to come from people coming into the tasting room and having a beer. I did not focus at that time on food. I didn't think food was the number one priority. Still isn't, but what I've come to learn is that you have to have not just beer, but food for folks when they come by. So I had a great partner around the corner who was providing food for us for the first 2 years. Unfortunately, when COVID hit, he decided that he wasn't going to come back into the business. I didn't know that at the time, but right before COVID hit, I went and got my own food license because he quit serving food at 9 o'clock, and I had people coming in until 12:30, 1 o'clock. So I needed late night food. So I was a blind squirrel finding a nut just for me to get my food license and have it when COVID hit. So I have a limited food offering right now. I have some of my grandma's Middle Eastern food. We are just in the process this week actually of purchasing and getting a kitchen up and running in the back of the brewery. So I'm going to be hiring a chef, and we're going to have a full menu of food, down the road.
Oh, exciting.
Great.
Yeah.
There's space for a kitchen back there amidst all the brewing stuff.
Well, there is when it's on 4 wheels, so.
Yeah. Nice.
So, it's been a lot of fun. I actually, and I heard Katie's voice, the same thing. I wouldn't trade the last 2.5 years for anything. I mean, to be able to run a business with your 2 kids, to go through all the different challenges and problems we've had to solve in the last 2.5 years, and to do it together and to just kind of watch them mature and grow has been a lot of fun. And I have to say, probably the strongest thing that we've got going for us right now is our staff. If you look through all of our Yelp reviews or Google reviews, you really see that it's marbled in the reviews is that our staff just treats people really nice. They're
So
knowledgeable, they understand the business, and they just treat people with the utmost respect, and that means a lot. So we're in a good spot right now, as well as we could be, quite frankly, with everything that's going on. We're really looking forward, like everybody, for this thing to slow down, and for us to get back inside, and for things to get back to whatever the new normal is. So,
Right.
but appreciate it.
And the Independent has an interesting shared history with Night Lizard Space. Apparently, I don't know if it was our first physical headquarters ever, but it was certainly one of the early ones. It was before my time, but the Independent used to be based in there. And I know that for sure because we had a little partnership before the pandemic where we were doing our semi-regular Pints for Press, where we would kind of bring some of our big stories to life. You'd sell some beer, we get like a buck of beer for the paper, not a ton of money for journalism, but something symbolic. And it was a fun time, and we had some cool times there. So we look forward to doing that again when we can. So great, John. Well, so we'll come back to you and hear a little bit more about how you guys are dealing with the current state of affairs. But let's cut over to Aron Ashland, who is the owner of the Cruisery, which opened in early 2019, I believe. But he's also, I believe, an owner at SB Wine Therapy, and has worked. I just looked at your resume before we got on this, and you've worked in downtown bars for quite a while. So why don't you tell us about your own personal background, Aron, and then into opening your own places, including the Cruisery.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be on with all you guys. I went to college here and then moved back after living in Colorado for about 10 years. Came back in '03, started working for Sharkies, talked them into buying Sandbar when it was up for sale about a year later. Took that over, was running both for about a year, worst year of my life, and then just ran Sandbar for about 12 years up until '08.
So just real quick, because I used to go to Sandbar when it was Calypso all the time. Did Sharkies take it over and turn to Sandbar, or had it already been turned into Sandbar?
No, there was he was a dean at UCSB and he bought the place for his son. I'm trying to remember their names. James and I can't remember. They actually bought it as Calypso, changed it, remodeled, put a waterfall on the back bar. We had to take out the day we bought it, like a bunch of stuff, and they took out that archway that was in there. But yeah, they did most of that and then called it Sandbar, and then we kept the name.
Okay, cool.
So
you got to really know how bars work or don't work in downtown Santa Barbara, basically.
Yeah, and especially it's funny, patio bars, which I think it's sort of strange because Santa Barbara's not quite warm enough to have so many outdoor spaces, despite this whole promenade thing that's new. But so yeah, I just learned a lot about, keeping that patio warm. I kind of lived and died by that patio for almost 15 years. I'm excited that I got that experience because I think it's going to help me moving forward. But ultimately, I kind of wanted to control my own destiny. So I started Santa Barbara Wine Therapy with a partner. We went out on Saturday mornings to yard sales and bought furniture and glasses and everything we could find for about 6 months, and then opened in July of 2016, about a week before Fiesta. And then had like a food partner in the back, and that was a nightmare because the ABC and they were letting kids in. It was just terrible. And so we realized we had to do something different there eventually. So long story short, I was let go from Sandbar because they found out I had opened Wine Therapy. And so I rolled that into the Cruisery, which I didn't really drink beer before this. I drink beer now, but ultimately I really like the idea of making something. I kind of cut my teeth at Sandbar doing the nightclub thing, which I thought maybe I left a little to be desired to me, I guess. So I wanted to connect a little bit more, I guess, and do something, make something. And so this was my opportunity. So it's been nice because it obviously allowed me some efficiencies because I can make my own beer for Wine Therapy now and things like that. But yeah, just looking forward to the future and all this and all
and the Cruisery moved into, what for many years was kind of hollowed ground for brewing in Santa Barbara, the Santa Barbara Brewing Co. And they were on the kind of the front edge of craft brewing when they opened many, many years before. So there was a lot of infrastructure there. How was that transition going from really, kind of well-known and very popular place, although maybe it was kind of fading at that time, but how did you go to bring in and kind of, splash it up and make things a little shinier there?
We had a lot of meetings up front, even whether or not we should buy the place. I had a couple of partners at the time that are no longer with me, but we really felt a couple of mistakes were made by them. And I got to watch it from across the street, whether I was down on the 400 block or the 500 block for about 15 years. And so we just thought that not having a great food presence, it seemed like everything they bought was frozen or served was frozen or had been pre-made by somebody else. We thought that was a big mistake. We didn't think they gave great service. The place was very dirty when we took it over. We spent like 10 days in the kitchen. The kitchen's pretty small, so like just cleaning. So things like that. And then the sports aspect of this whole thing, we felt that was something that would always be additive to anything we did, but would not be a smart way to let it stand alone as something that I guess we thought was going to keep us busy. I'd kind of seen from Sandbar and Sharkies over the years. There were years where the Lakers were, on top, winning the trophy, and everything was great. And then the next year they won 20 games, and no one came out to see them for a whole year. So that being part of our business plan didn't make sense to me. So we've just tried to create an interesting place where you can, I don't know, come hang out with friends, maybe bring a dog and play some skee ball or drink great beer, have some fun.
Do you have the back space too? They had that whole back lounge for a while. Do you have that as well?
Yeah, we call it Unbearable. So you got to come check it out. It's like a cabin themed bar. It's got like a 13-foot bear in it, vintage skee ball, ping pong, shuffleboard, couches, canoes hanging from the ceiling. It's fun.
Right, awesome. And when did you open Cruisery?
December 4th or 5th of 2018.
Okay.
And then we opened the back Unbearable. It was like, I think May 22nd of 2019. It was like the Friday of Memorial Day weekend, whatever that was.
Right. And do you do, and I'll shoot this to John too, but do you do like tasting flights, or is it mostly pint sales? What's the kind of format of the brewing, the tasting situation?
We were doing flights before all this. We thought they had told us that we couldn't do flights during COVID because the sharing aspect, a lot of people were like, oh, try this. So we kind of took it off the menu, although we were sort of doing it still. And then we kind of changed the name and called it a split pint. So we figured we wouldn't get in trouble. Not that we really think anyone's coming at the end of this to be like, hey, guess what you did during COVID? But we still thought there was value in at least following the rules as much as we could. So we did that for a while. And I think we actually forgot to put it back on our menu. But that's how we're basically sampling beers right now.
And how many beers are you making at any given time?
We typically have about 10 to 12. We've discussed maybe scaling back to around the 8 range until we get back indoor dining and things like that. We want to increase the frequency with which we're making kind of our core beers. They're just not quite enough volume to serve them as fresh as we like. So scaling back on what we have, we thought was kind of the simple answer for now.
Right. And is it you can and bottle as well, or what's the?
We don't. I guess I feel maybe completely different than most people about this. I think that you'll make way less money. So if I put a can like in a supermarket, I might make $1 off that can, versus if I sell it here, I might make $5 or $6. And I kind of want to create a beer someday, and we don't have it yet, but someday I want to make a beer that's so amazing that you have to come to me to get it. And so whether you come to Wine Therapy or Unbearable or the Cruisery, I kind of wanted to have I wanted to corner the market on my own beer if I can do something great. So I guess I didn't want to distribute it on some level.
Good idea.
Yeah. John, you can do tasting flights that are prior to the pandemic, whatever the rules are now, you can do tasting flights were popular.
Yeah, we do 4 flights, $10, $9 during happy hour. But similar to Aron, we kind of, there was a fork in the road when we opened about, where are we going to get the revenue? Is it going to be from the tasting room, or is it going to be from distribution? And I had just talked to so many breweries that had already opened that, had signed contracts for distribution that, had to deliver this many pallets of beer to Costco every Saturday morning. And if they weren't there, is there money there? Absolutely. But our model was, we have 16 taps. We have about 10 of those taps are our regular beers, but we constantly have 5 to 6 experimental taps. And I think it's one of the things that people come in for. They really like the experimental. I mean, these are small batch beers that we're just trying out just to see if they work. If they work, we go with a 15-barrel batch. But our S'more Stout, which is our stout that we serve with a roasted marshmallow, at least we used to during COVID.
You got some great names for your beers too.
Yeah, but I mean, people come over for that. So, so it is about having unique beers, I think, but also having your standards, like Aron is saying, that that people go, want to come for. And I would love it. It's in my business plan. I would love to have a beer that the distributors are coming to me saying, I gotta have this in the store. But maybe.
And do you do crowlers or anything? I know there's some systems you can just kind of do it. You do crowlers.
Yeah. Okay. So we bottle our Grand Cru, which is our vintage Belgian ale. It's about 14 or 15%, depending on it's barrel aged. So we'll bottle that in a 25.5 ounce wine bottle. But we do we have a 16-ounce 4-pack that we sell, and we have a 32-ounce crowler that we sell as well of all of our beers. So if you want a beer to go, you can walk out with it. But we're not mass producing cans or bottles for distribution in the grocery stores or liquor stores yet.
Right. Katie, prior to the pandemic, what was a typical setup for people to come into Grassini? And then let's shift into what you guys have done during the pandemic to keep your customers coming.
Yeah, so I mean, prior to the pandemic, we just had that small little outdoor patio, and then most of our seating was either indoors and then at the bar. And we could do tasting flights. We had a Sauvignon Blanc flight, we had an all red flight, we had, the mix. And then you could also do by the glass. Some people would buy a bottle and split. And then after we reopened, everything changed. When we first reopened, we were just doing by the glass, just because, like Aron said, we were kind of concerned, like we didn't think we could do flights at first. And that was what we were kind of understanding the rules to be. They didn't want you pouring, into different glasses and we didn't really, there was just so much that people didn't understand and didn't know about how this thing was spread. And I think we know, so it's wild how much we've learned over the last year about this thing. So yeah, now we can do flights again, and we are back to doing that. We're back to doing by the glass if people want that, and people can share a bottle if they want that, and then again, the being able to open and expand the outdoor patio space. We were so lucky with that. And I have to give a lot of props to the city, and especially with me being in a historical building in the El Paseo, I thought I was gonna hit a brick wall, and that there was no way I was gonna be able to expand. Our building is kind of strange where I'm situated. It's sort of this little rectangle in the middle of this complex, and we've got doors on both sides of the long side of the rectangle. And and then there's just blank space on both sides outside there. So the first thing I did was call my landlord, which is SEMA, and they were remarkable to work with. He said, whatever you need to do, we want to support you in your business. And they were right there for me. I called the Trust for Historical Preservation. They supported us completely. They said, we want to help you, which was phenomenal. And then the ABC was a whole nother layer that they were there to help us. And the city was also willing. And I mean, I could not believe how quickly we were able to get those patios set up once we got the okay and get that going. And then get the tables and the chairs and all of that. It was amazing. So.
I know there's some question as to what's going to remain permanent in many places, but the way yours looks set up, it looks like it's good to go for forever. I mean, was that a permanent change as far as you know, or?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see what happens in the future. Okay. It's something that I'd love to have those conversations with everyone and see. I think I know that the historical folks would love to keep having people come in off of State Street and explore like everything that's happening with De La Guerra Plaza, and the conversations that are having about revitalizing that whole area is really exciting. And they want more people to come in and explore the Presidio neighborhood. And our space really is kind of the welcoming mat to invite people back that way. So I think the more that we can, it would be so weird now to take all that stuff down. It would be so blank. I don't know how we get around that.
It really works in having both sides there, and it just makes you want to meander all through there and sit down and enjoy the space.
Yeah.
And it's not in anyone's way. It doesn't seem to be causing any safety hazards. You're not taking up someone's parking space. It's just unused space, really.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's unused space, and I think too, in talking to people, this whole past year is going to leave a scar on people's psyche. It's going to be a while, even once we're all vaccinated and once we're allowed to go back inside. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, given the choice, I'd rather sit outside, or give me the fresh air. So I think having that option more, it's gonna be beyond this year, I think. So we're gonna need that option for as long as we can have it until the rest of society is ready to go back indoors.
And how has it been as far as business goes? I mean, I heard a lot of people had a really great summer and was doing pretty well up until that second shutdown. So did that go well? And then how has it been for the last, I don't know how long you've been open again, a week or two, I assume.
Yeah. I mean, those patios were a lifesaver. I mean, that's the thing. Thank goodness, like I said, for the city and all those agencies that helped us get open, they saved us. And also the community rallying around the shop local, everything that downtown Santa Barbara and the independent, everything that you guys did to get the word out to people in the Santa Barbara community that shop local, it really made a difference because our wine club folks, we're really lucky that we are able to have a product that does respond well, you know, that it can be shipped out. So our wine club, we did offer $5 shipping, which we're still doing now. So, you know, I mean, there is a cost involved with that, but for us to be able to say to folks like, hey, you know, we'll foot the bill on the shipping, but we're seeing that wine go out the door. And, you know, I don't know if it's homeschooling or like the other stresses of the pandemic, but people were putting away the wine. So the orders were going out the door. So yeah, people were very supportive. So we were lucky in that regard. And then just once the patios were open, people were coming in. So and then once the shutdown happened in December, that was heartbreaking. You know, we do a big fundraiser every year in December. So that was probably the hardest part for us, was not being able to do the fundraiser in person, because that's kind of such a big holiday thing for us. But we moved it into an online format, and we were able to raise quite a bit of money for the food bank here in Santa Barbara, which was great because that's a year that they really needed it. And then since reopening, you know, that's kind of, we've all gotten really good at pivoting, but you know, it would have been nice to have a little more warning. We had been planning on, everyone had been telling us to plan to be closed for the whole quarter. That's right. Everyone in the wine industry, that's all, every community that I was talking to was saying, you'll be closed for the whole quarter. And that's what we had told all of our employees. People had moved back home to be with their parents. And, you know, so you can't just flip that switch and turn it back on. And then when the governor said, you can be open, you know, there's a rainstorm coming, and I'm in a historical building. I don't have any coverings that I can put up. And, you know, people expect a certain level of comfort when they're
right.
I'm not going to sit them underneath some jankety umbrella and have them get soaked. So, so we said, you know, someone said it, just because someone says you can do it doesn't mean you should. So
it was pouring the week we could open. It was literally outrageous storm, like the storm of the year. And open up, everybody stay outside.
Yeah.
But it was good right after that. So that Friday, Saturday and beyond, I think people were so ready to be out.
My business, we were really, really happy to have the rain. But yeah, we waited about 10 days to reopen. And then once we did, we really kind of took it slow. We didn't put all the tables out right away because my staff was really nervous. You know, they'd spent 2 months inside watching the news, hearing about mutant variants, and, you know, they were scared to death to come back in. You know, should I wear 2 masks and all that? So there was really a balancing act between wanting to be open and have the business, but not wanting to have terrified staff. So that's our experience.
Aron, did the Cruisery, I assume you established a parklet as soon as you could early on. How'd that go, and how's it going?
So yeah, it's been interesting. The parklet moved 2 or 3 times in the first couple weeks. It was on the sidewalk, and then it was out in the street. It's changed size a few times. I think people called to complain our tables were too close together, so we had to remove some tables. So yeah, it's been interesting. I think we potentially had the ability to do one on what would be like the south side of our building on Haley. but I didn't think anyone would want to sit there in the shade. I'm very aware of where the sun is because I ran a patio restaurant for so long. So by about noon or 1, the sun would be behind our building. So I didn't think it was worth us spending any money over there. I've also been really careful not to spend money out front. Like we hand built some tables. I have a handyman that's really kind of builds everything by hand. But other than his hours and some wood, we didn't build any structures because I just haven't heard, I guess, permanent direction from the city. And I go way back. I've been in trouble so many times at Sandbar from, you can't paint that sign, you can't move that over there, you can't have that chair there. So like, I know what sticklers they can be. So I was just kind of being careful and didn't want to spend any money in the wrong direction. The one thing that we did that I think is great or interesting, but I agree that the city did an amazing job in all this. So there's just the fact that they gave us State Street is amazing. But we have a parking lot behind us that was really problematic when we first moved in. We have videos of people shooting drugs into their arms, smoking things out of pipes that I've never seen, and us yelling at them, calling the police. Like, so it was bad for a while. But what happened in all this is we got to carve out like 6 parking places. So it only really worked on Friday and Saturdays, probably maybe some Sunday afternoons when it was really nice in the summer. But right now we're working on getting that back open with a little bit different idea and some fun stuff going on back there that we think will attract people. But that's probably the front patio. You know, the promenade is going to be huge for us. And that if we can develop that street patio as something to kind of be an addition to Unbearable, we think that'll be fun. Maybe like almost like a smoking patio, even though that's not legal. But you know, it's kind of private property, so like that would be the place to go hide if you were a smoker or whatever. If you were gonna puff on your joint for a second, we thought that would be kind of a out of sight, out of mind place to do it.
Right. And what's your usual occupancy, pre-COVID occupancy, and how many can you seat right now?
This one's good. Well, it would have been like 360 to probably 380, depending on how you did the capacity on the patios. And I have 28 seats right now.
Jesus.
My place is 8,800 square feet.
The space is really large with the front and back here.
$30,000 a month in rent, and I have 8 tables right now to pay for that.
Wow.
John, how about you? You talked a little bit about what you've done, but you went out to the front too, and what's your kind of setup there?
Yeah, I actually stood in line with Aron down at the City Hall getting our permits approved by the ABC office. And kudos to the city for turning all that around as quick as they did. It really, really helped us. Yep. So yeah, I'm out on State Street on Tuesdays. I'm wrapped around the farmers market, which is great. The rest of the week, I mean, people are coming, up and down State Street with the promenade. It's one of the few things since I've been in this town that I've seen everybody agree on is that this promenade ought to stay. So hopefully it will. But I have private parking spots in the back as well. So I've got a tent back there, and I can put up seating in the back. I mean, one of the challenges I've had, I'm sure everybody here has, and I've talked to a lot of the businesses on State Street, we're all kind of struggling with resources, with people. Back last year when the first, COVID hit and everybody got laid off, I had to pretty much rehire an entire staff, when we reopened back up. And it was much more advantageous for folks to stay home and collect unemployment. They were getting more money. Got a whole new staff rehired last year in midsummer, went through the summer. And then when it hit again on December 9th, that everything closed down again, I lost about 50% of my staff. So this last weekend was fantastic because you had the Valentine's Day and President's Weekend on the same time. And it was, everybody I talked to said it was one of the best weekends revenue-wise they've had. It was great. But what I also heard is that a lot of tourists were walking up and down the street looking for food because so many places just didn't have the staff and didn't have the the seating, to fill everybody. So I think we'll get back to that, but that's been a challenge. So my original capacity was 145 and I can do 50 now, right now. So, and same as Aron, that doesn't exactly pay all the bills,
Right.
but it's going in that direction at least versus just doing takeout or to go and delivery. So
right. Well, now we're into the prognosticating part of the program. Who has any predictions on or hopes on what direction we're moving into right now? Any big predictions? Anyone? Aron? What do you think's happening?
That's a hard one, huh?
25% dining indoors in 10 days. After that, I don't know. I think there's going to be a point where the vaccines and they cross, and then, but I guess the thing that challenges me is the facial covering thing, and not like a personal preference or anything, but I guess smiling at people and being social. I think part of that is understanding how someone feels, and maybe I might be able to do it because I've been in the restaurant business for a long time, but to judge from here up based on what someone's feeling or thinking is difficult. So I'm looking forward to that and hoping that we get back to that at some point and we don't have to wear masks forever. But I really do think that the promenade is going to set Santa Barbara off in a direction that it hasn't been in a long time. I've kind of watched the city or State Street disintegrate over the last probably 8 years. I didn't actually realize how bad it was until I got over here. And like I said, there were people shooting up in the back parking lot. I didn't realize that stuff was going on. Year before I was over at Sandbar, didn't realize that was going on, and it was happening over here. So that I'm really excited because I think this is gonna kind of infuse the city with the money, the resources, and the things it needs to kind of come in line with what the city was doing. We were building these fancy hotel rooms and all these things, but we had homeless drug addicts all over the street. Like literally there were nights on like late on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights where there were like 15 homeless drug addicts next door at Haunted Kitchen before COVID. And there was nobody else on the street. Like there were no customers, and you wouldn't dare walk on this side of this block because you're going to get accosted or catcalled by the guy, like it was bad. So I'm just excited that this is, I think, a different just feeling for everyone's going to want to come up here. We got this little free marketing plan when they kept LA closed and we were open. Everyone from LA was like, hey, let's go to Santa Barbara and check it out. And like, we had this new street that was closed. So I think LA and everyone south of us is going to be coming here as their little getaway for years to come. The way it was like when I first moved to town, like probably like early 2000s, like every weekend was banging. There were lines everywhere. And it just, for the last 6-8 years, it just really hasn't been like that. So I'm excited. I think the future is good if we all get through this, or when we get through this.
Right. John, you excited? I mean, it sounds like you wouldn't give these last 2 years up because you've been able to work with your family and your kids and watch them grow, but do you think we're on for brighter days here?
I think we are. I guess one question I have is, what does State Street look like a year from now? And I've talked to enough people that were hanging on by their fingernails before the COVID. They were month to month that, I think we're going to go through this dip. I think we're going to experience a little bit of a dip where you're going to see some more vacancies. But I also hear that there are a lot of people that want to come into those spots.
True.
So I think, midterm, 3 to 5 years down the road, I think it's going to look great. I think it's going to be vibrant. I think this, to what Aron and Katie have said, I think that, when you got the funk zone and everything underneath the 101, and now you've built this promenade, it literally sucks the tourists up the street. And the 500 block has 19 bars and restaurants. I'm kind of alone on the 600 block, but if they see light, they do come. And they talk about what a pretty street it is and how they don't have anything like this where they come from. So, I think the future is bright as we get through this. I think it's I look forward to getting back to events like trivia and having professors in pints and the Independent back in, doing their book thing. So when we get back to those days, I think things will be rich.
Yeah, great. Katie, I mean, the Presidio neighborhood seemed like it was taken off right when the pandemic hit. I mean, Hugh Margin's done a good job branding that, and it seemed like it was really starting to happen. And what's the feeling there for you?
I am with John and Aron. I agree. I think that Hugh did an amazing job with the Presidio neighborhood, and I think it's going to continue. I think everyone keeps talking about the Roaring 20s. I think we're going to get to that point where it is going to happen. I think once everyone can get out there, they're just going to go wild and just be so excited to be out there, going to the trivia, going and meeting up with their friends and going to weddings again. There are so many things. People that have had their, those big milestone events, the 50th birthdays that didn't happen, 40th birthdays that didn't happen. You know, they need those places to go and celebrate. And that's going to happen. And Santa Barbara is a great place to do it. We have so much open air space to do it safely in the short term. And I think the promenade, the State Street being closed, that's something that's needed to happen for a long time. And we knew it, but there was just so much discussion and back and forth. And, you know, if you think back to a year and a half ago, we were doing all these tests, like maybe we'll close the underpass for a weekend, and, you know, we'll do this
Experiment weekend, yeah.
we'll ask these questions. And, you know, this kind of just forced our hand and made us try it out. And I think everyone can see that it was a success. It's something that needed to happen. And now we just need to tweak it. We need to figure out a way to do it where the bikes can go up and down safely, where the pedestrians feel like they're not going to be knocked over, but the kids can still have fun and, you know, get up and down from the wharf. And the, you know, retail can still have people walking up and down past their doors so that they don't feel like, you know, people don't see that there's, you know, all these beautiful clothes and shops and things that they can go into. And it's not just restaurants and what we do. You know, so I think now we see it's nice without the cars. We're still seeing that people are figuring out that they can park their cars and find fun things to do. And now it's just time for the next step. And I think, you know, it'll take a little while to figure it out, but we're going to get there. I feel positive about it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I never drove up State Street unless I was trying to delay where I was going. So, great. Well, it's nice to end one of these shows on positivity, which we haven't always been able to do. But Robin, you want to take us out here?
Sure. So thank you all so much for a great conversation. It's great to see the future through all of your eyes and just think about what that can look like and learn about how it's going really for each of you. Next week, we're going to be talking about the return of experiential travel. We're going to be talking to David Delarbe from Santa Barbara Travel Bureau, as well as Michael Cohen from the Santa Barbara Adventure Company, and Kathy Janega Dykes, who is the executive director for Visit Santa Barbara. So all great movers and shakers again next week at 3 o'clock. Join us here. And then also tonight, we're going to be having our next State Street Promenade Market, which is on the 1000 block of State Street, going on tonight. So the future is bright for downtown. It is bright tonight because all the lights will be on State Street with the market. So hope to see you out there. And thank you, Matt, again for another great show. Thanks, John, Aron, and Katie. Keep up all the good work. Thanks for making our town special.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you all next time. Bye, guys.